Hi everyone, I'm Tim Von Rieden, better known as Vonnart Online, and welcome to one of my interviewing with the artists YouTube streams. And today I am very privileged and honored to have Annie Stegg. Well, do you go by Annie Stegg Gerard now officially?
I do, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to say Annie Stegg Gerard, and she is one of the best living oil painters alive and working today, in my opinion, if not the best, right alongside Justin. And I am very excited to ask you some questions. And if you guys want to join in the conversation, please put at Vonnart in the comments. That way I can see what you want to ask. And then I'm going to be typing them throughout this interview. And then we're going to ask them at the end. So the way that we're going to structure it is 10 questions in the beginning. And these 10 are ones that I ask every artist. And then we'll get into the user questions. So I guess without further ado, Annie, do you want to do a quick introduction of who you are and what you do?
Hey, everybody. My name's Annie, and I'm an oil painter. I work mostly for myself right now. I do take some client work, but the most of the body of my work is all personal work at the moment.
Oh, I didn't know that, really?
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, good for you. Well, I know you had that last project where it seemed like you did like 50 little headshots of animal characters, right?
Oh, yeah. I work with one company, and I do a game with them like every year or so, every other year. But it's a lot of fun.
Wait, you do it every other year?
I think so. I think the last one was 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. So you do client work every other year and it's like known client work.
Pretty much.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like you very understated your status in the art community once again. I do feel like you are so good. And I'm sure the people that are here watching know how great you are and they want to ask you and get to know not only how you do your work, but to get to know you better. So, once again, thank you, Annie, for being here. And sorry about leaving you for that minute.
It's okay.
Okay. So, jumping into it, we're going to get into the 10 questions. So,
Okay.
growing up, when did art seem to grab your attention?
Gosh, I've really been interested in art as long as I can remember. My great grandparents were both artists, and my grandparents and my dad. So I
What?
think that being surrounded by so many artists really helped encourage me to stay creative. And I think we're all naturally artists as children. But then if that isn't nurtured, most people tend to give it up as they get older. So I'm just really thankful that I was around so much family who encouraged it when I was growing up.
That's amazing. So, wait, were your grandparents, were they also oil painters?
Yeah, my great grandparents and my grandparents.
Oh my gosh. Well, this makes a lot of sense. And then you said also your dad.
Yes.
So it literally has been like a passed down skill trade. You're like one of the few people I've ever heard that this is happening. So does
I
this
hope
mean
my little brother's, gosh, he's 20 now, and he's really interested in becoming an artist. So I hope that happens.
what? Wait, then another question off of this. Are you gonna then have your boys, your kids also be nurtured in art?
That would be incredible. I really, really hope so.
This is so funny. Me and my friends have a debate on this. Like, do we want our kids to be artists? And I was like, I kind of want my kid to be like opposite of me, like football jock. uh, so it's really cool though hearing when it's passed down from generation to generation to generation. I just never hear that. I think that's amazing. And like, did you learn a lot from them specifically? Like, did they sit you down when you were younger and like show you techniques or anything?
No, it was mostly just that I always should be doing something, and they just gave me a lot of supplies. Um, my grandmother still just paints tons of landscape. She does a lot of seascape type things. She's still showing it at shows. And both of my great grandparents were also landscape painters as well. And so I guess it was just really about being around them and how much they encouraged me just to pick up the tools and experiment.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, well, so going on to our next question. So, this is okay, so can we see some work from 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 15? And I know you have the ones that you sent me. So we're going to go in the order of 15 years ago, and then 10 years, and then 5. So let me
Oh,
open that up. And as I'm opening these up, I do find it like I feel like you cheated. I feel like you grabbed really good work because none of this looks like when I ask other artists to show work from 15 years ago. It does not look like this. This is like, oh yeah, you can show like this is my bad work. Like here you go. Like this is still really good. Okay, so now it's open.
Okay. Um, so the oldest pieces that I said, it was 15 years, right? Um, Back then, 15 years ago, I was working for a video game company, and I was painting a lot of things that I did not really care about. And
Oh.
on the side, during my lunch breaks or just whenever I could, I would try to work on my own personal projects. And so I did a series of illustrations. These are my three favorites. Back then, I was working mostly with watercolor and colored pencil. And really, it was just opposite of everything that I was doing at this game studio. It was because again, at the game studio, I was illustrating things like armor and weapons and
Yeah.
vehicles, and just things that they weren't really new, you know. Um, so yeah, those are my three favorite pieces from back then.
Wait, so
Um,
question. So then
yeah,
so you say you did these during your lunch breaks. Would you actually bring like watercolors and stuff with you to the office?
I would. Yeah.
Oh my god. I literally I did think these were digital at first. I had no idea that these look great for pencil and watercolors during lunch breaks.
I mean, it took a while. So these pieces took me longer than any oil painting that I think I've ever done. The one in the middle, I redid like two or three times just because I kept breaking through the paper because I have a little
Oh,
bit of a hand when I work with pencil, which is why I admire your work so much. You do so much pencil work and it's so lovely and just soft, and your shading is so soft.
I'm just a softie, that's why. I can't even
Um,
I can't like hearing you say you tore through the paper like eats at me. Wow. Okay. I mean, I think that these are amazing. So let's go to the 10 years ago then. So you jumped from this to open that thumbnail. Okay, so 10 years ago.
okay, so 10 years ago, um, I decided to move the working with colored pencil and watercolor was really, really hard on my hands and on my wrist. And so I wanted to try to get the same type of feeling and the same type of themes, but with painting. So the one on the very left is when I started with acrylics. And that is acrylics on something called Yes Canvas, which is like a very, very smooth, almost paper-like canvas. I
This
worked
is
in a
acrylics?
yeah, it's the golden open acrylics, which I really recommend if you're a person that just wants to kind of you're not ready for oils yet and you want to move into something that has a little bit more working time. They're great. I love them. And then the next piece was oils, and the one after that was also oils. But I wasn't at that time, I still wasn't proficient enough to get the type of detail that I wanted from my pencil drawings. So I feel like um, over all these years, I'm really just trying to get back to that same illustrative quality, but in oils.
So wait, I'm wondering here. So you said at 15 years ago you were still working a full-time job. So where were you in life when these were created?
Where was I?
So like were you working still full-time at a studio? Were you independent?
Yeah, I didn't go completely independent until 2008, I believe. Um,
Okay.
so I think I still was working for a studio when I did these ones in the middle. It was a different studio at this point. But I would do these after work.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm amazed by the far left one. To think that that's acrylic. I thought for sure this was colored pencil on some way or some level.
The that canvas, it has such a like really, really nice, very fine texture, and it grinds your brushes down. But I think that
Oh.
for acrylics, it's perfect. They still sell it now at Dick Blick or Jerry's Artorama.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. Okay, so then let's jump ahead to 5 years ago. And I think this is when I met you. So this is what most used to seeing when I think of your work.
So during this stage, I was still trying to find the perfect surface to paint on. I had moved from the canvas to now working on paper that had been mounted to a board, because I still like doing more detailed drawings and then painting with oil over the drawings. And I like doing my drawings on paper instead of on board. And so all of these pieces were done that way. I think the one to the very, very right in this set
Yeah.
was more, I think this one was more like 8 years ago, but I feel like it still fits in with the same technique I started using during that time.
I mean, these are all gorgeous. So then these are all oil then.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, so then at this point, were you deciding, like 5 years ago, that this was going to be like your focus medium?
Absolutely. It's definitely my favorite one that I've worked with.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people probably even know this in chat, but I feel like to really appreciate oil paintings, you have to see them in person.
Absolutely. You can't get the layering or anything digitally.
Mm-mm. Well, and even God, the color, the saturation that you can get in person versus just through a photo. I'm still amazed at how you and Justin photograph your stuff because it is very difficult.
I scan all of my paintings.
What?
I scan it's getting the perfect lighting by photographing them is so difficult. And so I just scan them in parts.
Oh my gosh. Because that's what I do with my drawings. Because of the graphite, it would be horrible to do it. But I
Mhm.
guess that makes sense why these are so perfect. Like you know what? I was always wondering how you got to do it without any, like, of the specular lighting from a light bulb.
Uh-huh.
Now I know you scan it. So do you
Yep.
use like a giant Epson or something?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Yep, that's what I have too. So now I opened up your 3 years ago. So 3 years till present, I guess this would be. And I mean, these are stunning. It's actually funny that you pulled up the one on the top left. I actually have it on my wall. I have like a what I call the Masters of Art, and each one's like a different medium. So I have Alan Williams and Jeremy Bastian, and then you are representing my oil alongside Justin. So this is the one that I actually chose.
Um, yeah, this is pretty much where I am now. The one on the top left that you mentioned is in fact is me trying to get back and just doing that catfish painting over again, except
Ah,
for oils. And so I tried working with the border work, and it took a while, but I was finally confident um, in my ability to create really really fine details at this point. And all of these paintings,
mhm.
I stopped using the paper mounted to board, and I'm painting directly on primed wood now. I think I can get a little bit more fine detail that way as well.
So it would probably be a little harder to poke a hole through it.
Yep.
Man, and it's just really lovely looking at these pieces because you have like these gradients going throughout the images, but it's in like different areas of like petals, and like the petals will have a gradation to it. And I think you've really mastered the idea of like having a lot in the image, like the more is better philosophy, but without it feeling so chaotic that it loses its sensibility. And I think that's why I've always looked at your art and like really gravitated toward it because you have so much detail, but yet it's still so soft and it has a very simple look to it at like from afar. Um,
Oh, thank you.
so these three, I mean, these four, these are all spectacular.
Thank
And
you.
I think for anyone that is listening to this, you have to go see her work though in person. I feel like seeing a photo of it and a scan is still marvelous, but being able to look at it up close and like seeing the dimensions that the oil and the I think it's what the resin kind of captures and brings out the
Yeah,
colors
it's like
more.
of walnut oil. 'Cause I do a lot of glazing in my paintings, and so it does create almost like transparent layers of resin is what it looks like. But
Hmm.
you can really see the layers of paint just on top of one another.
I didn't know it's walnut oil.
Mhm.
Oh, it's so weird. I'm a very simple person, so like in my mind, I'm like imagining like crushing walnuts to extract oil. I can't imagine it, but I'll believe it. I'll believe it. Okay, so jumping into the next question, we have, so what piece do you feel defined your growth and progress from seeing yourself more as an amateur to more of a professional one?
Oh, this is a difficult question because I think everyone's definition of an amateur versus a professional artist is different. And I also think that that definition changes as you grow.
Are you
When I
giving me a politics answer here?
I'll get into it. When I created that catfish piece, I was already working as an artist for a video game company, as I said.
Hmm.
Um, so technically, I was a professional artist at that time, but I didn't feel like one because I was creating artwork that did not resonate with me or who I am as a person. And even though I was supporting myself with my artwork, it felt inauthentic, I guess. Um, and for me, I think it's really important to create a lot of artwork in order to grow. And if I finish, say, 50 paintings in a year, I like to aim to have maybe just one piece that I consider to be a breakout piece. And what I mean by that is just that I've made one painting that I feel like represents me and what I'm trying to convey as an artist. And when that
Mm.
happens, I know I'm on the right path. But that feeling is fleeting and it will last
Oh.
maybe just a day. And then I'm back on my journey to capture that feeling again. And then maybe another 50 paintings later, I'll have it. So to
I mean, that
answer your
fleeting feeling,
question,
yeah.
I would say there's one single painting that defines my own personal success as an artist. It's more like a constant journey of growth because as you grow, your goalpost for what defines success to you moves.
Oh, for sure. And actually elaborating on that, because I mean, you mentioned it, you had a full-time job, you still didn't feel like a professional artist yet.
Right.
Like I know a lot of my art friends that work in the industry kind of feel the same, and even like some of my friends that work at Riot, like in my mind, they're working at like one of the biggest game companies, but they still see themselves as working, creating art for other people, kind of like what you mentioned. And then they see someone like me, even when I was starting off as like a successful artist, but I'm like, I'm struggling. It is like I feel controlled by the Instagram hammer, you know. And I'm like, I do not think I'm a professional artist. I think I like skated by, and I'm like doing the best I can. So it's interesting that you say that because I do agree. I think everyone has a different definition of what being a professional and like where that shift from amateur to professional. I mean, based on your art from 15 years ago, you were still a professional back then. So I don't know. I think that that's a great answer because I think when people think that they get a job, that's the moment when they're going to feel like a professional, but it really isn't defined by that.
Yeah. And especially like what you said, when you're working for a big company, you're creating something for somebody else. It's not you. And what you're working on might not even be shown. I mean, if you're a concept artist,
Yeah.
that's not the final thing that people are seeing in this product. So,
How many times that happened to you specifically where you like did concepts for a month and then they all got scrapped?
oh, I mean, always like every
Mm-hmm.
game um, that High Res Studios puts out called Smite. And I was the one that originally designed all of the characters. Like it was so long ago, and I was the only concept artist at that time. And the game was so different. Like it was going to be really dark and kind of scary. And it's completely changed from what it was going to be.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Did I guess what were your like your favorite parts working at a full time job versus your least favorite part was working at a full time job?
Uh I the people I like being around other artists. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely the best part. I'm still in contact with a lot of people that I worked with at the studios back then. Um, and the worst thing is just using your creative energy for something that you might not necessarily care about. You only have so much time, and it just seems like a waste to put that energy towards something like that.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, would you say a lot of the nights then coming home, you said that you worked on a lot of your pieces either at lunch breaks or after. I think that's good to hear is like you still kind of have to push if you want to do art outside of that full time job and possibly make it a career outside of it. You really do have to spend the time to do it.
Hmm.
Okay, so then going to the next question, is there a piece you have a personal connection that stands out amongst the rest as a personal favorite?
Oh, I think, um, well, I used it in one of the ones that I sent you. It was the 5 year, the last image,
Oh, let me pull it back
the
up.
lion naiad. And I think this is the first piece that I had created since my catfish color pencil illustration that I felt like I was really back on track painting what I was supposed to be painting. Um,
Oh, the far right one. Yes.
and plus, I believe I showed this painting at my first convention, sharing a booth with Justin. So I'll always, I'm always gonna have a soft
Ah!
spot for that one.
And they showed up on the screen one more time here. I mean, it is gorgeous. If you wouldn't have told me this was 5 years ago, I thought this would have been even recent because it does kind of capture that same beautiful aesthetic you seem to capture even currently in your pieces. I mean, I feel like you get to a point where you're so good, it's hard to decipher. I feel the same way about like James Jean and a lot of these artists where I can't tell if it's like a new piece or if it's like within the past 5 years because they're all just such high quality, you know.
Oh,
Also, I love the way you draw turtles. I had turtles as a kid, so the way
oh,
you draw turtles, they have like they're the way that you draw them. They have like this slightly cuter, like stubbier head aesthetic, and I love it. I think they're the best turtles in
I
art.
love that.
All right, so then, how do you hope people see your work?
Gosh. Well, really, like what you just said, I really hope someone viewing my work will see the beauty in things that maybe aren't traditionally seen as beautiful, like toads or turtles or bugs. And I really just want to bring a little bit more mystery into the world. I have a catfish it's gosh, she's 21 years old now, I think.
What?
Put her in a lot of my paintings. She's in the painting that you said that you have a print of. She's the fish in the bottom corner.
Wait, you
Uh,
actually have a catfish?
but again, for like 20 years, I've been putting her in my work, and I think she's so beautiful. But I know when people come to my house and they see this giant tank with this, like, she's not very flashy. She's not bright and colorful like a tropical fish. She's just
Yeah.
this, kind of dull grayish colored fish. And I just think that she's gorgeous. And if you look at her for a little bit, like, I don't know, I feel like other people would see it. Um, but I really like hearing other people's interpretations of my work, and symbols and themes are always going to be different from person to person. And for that reason, I actually really don't like talking too much about what I was thinking when I was creating a piece, because I don't want to change a story or a vision that someone else had. But every once in a while, I'll have somebody write me or tell me at a convention or a gallery show what they felt when looking at a certain painting. And it's always so nice and encouraging to hear those things.
I do feel the older I get, the more I stop correcting people if they like, oh, this is what this means to me. Instead, I just kind of listen and I just kind of
Yeah.
nod, you know. But I
Mhm.
can't believe you actually have a cat. When you said you had a catfish, I thought you meant like you visualize one in your art, but you actually own one.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god, that's so crazy.
She's on Instagram like a few posts back. Um, but yeah,
Does she have a name?
Ramona.
Oh, Mona the catfish. Oh my god, that's brilliant. I thought don't you have a dog though?
I do.
What
I
other
have
pets do you have?
wait, what?
What other pets do you have?
um, I have a kitty cat, the dog. Um, my aquarium has a bunch of other fish. But that's really, I mean, I had a lot more. Like growing up, I had an iguana. I had an iguana from like elementary school till after college. Um, Gorgeous. And I had like a lot of frogs and tadpoles, and I had a gecko. Just a lot of these little creatures that I like to put into my paintings.
Were you one of those girls that had like one of those little bug catcher kits and would like go to the creek?
Yes.
Oh my god, what was your
When
iguana's name?
I was in high school, I worked for a pet store. And so then, like if there were any animals we wouldn't be able to sell or they were injured or I had to take them home. And so
Oh
my
my
whole
God.
my whole room is a pet store.
For some reason, that doesn't surprise me that much. Oh, that's great. Okay, so then how do you balance the dual life of running a business and creating without monetary intention an art that's purely for yourself? And then I guess as like an add-on, now also being a parent as well.
Oh my goodness. Well, I definitely feel really lucky that art is something that I'm able to support myself with. But in truth, even if it wasn't, I would still be doing the same thing that I'm doing now.
Hmm.
But I would have a regular job on the side. Um, like I mentioned, when I created those color pencil illustrations, I already had a full-time job, and I wasn't creating those works with any type of monetary purpose in mind. I wasn't even planning on selling prints of them or anything. Um, but it was really just something that I did because I wanted to, and really, I didn't expect that anyone would even really like that type of thing. Um,
No
but
way. No way. But keep going, keep going.
all these years later, I'll admit it'd be really, really difficult to go back to a regular job for sure.
Oh yeah.
And I hate that monetary intention has to be part of the equation at all. But that's the reality if you want to be an independent person and not rely on someone else to pay your bills for you. And it's something that you have to think about as an artist. And I recently wrote an article about this and how to diversify your income so that you don't have financial stress as an artist. Um, Around the time that I decided to quit my full time studio job and work completely at home as a freelance artist, um, is when the market crash happened.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, and so now, we're kind of in that same situation now. It's not as bad, but it's a lot of economic uncertainty. Um, so I find that by spreading out your income, I like to call it the 5 pillars of income.
Hmm.
Um, I have my online store, a Patreon, conventions, gallery shows, and client work. So basically, I'm able to support myself on any one of these things by themselves. But by spreading it all out and having these multiple streams of income, if something crazy happens, like the pandemic that we're in now, and I lose a few streams of income, like the conventions and gallery shows,
Hmm.
I don't have to be financially stressed, and I can still focus on creating the work that I love.
Yeah. I I mean this is something I always talk with my art friends about. Like you have to like split yourself into two people, the business side of you and then the artistic side. And
Hmm.
you have to try, or at least the way that I've gotten by is like you have to try your best to let the artistic person kind of run it, and then the
Yeah.
businessman kind of follows behind, and then whatever seems to be like good or can be used as like a pin or a print, it'll go into that business then circuit. But I think I've had too many times in my life where I've let the business person lead and then I become unhappy as an artist. So I always try to have the artist first.
Hmm.
And I'm assuming you do the same.
I try to, yeah.
And I guess the question I've been very curious about is seeing a lot of these artists that have kids. I don't get it because both my siblings have 4 and 5 kids each. And I talk to them a lot and I don't know how they get anything done. And then I'm thinking about being an artist. If I had a bunch of kids, I would have to like delegate it somehow. And it cuts a huge time of your life because you also want to be like a good parent and be there during like, their developing years. So do you find you have a schedule where either like after they go to bed or before they wake up or during nap time or something is when you can then dive into work?
Um, Luckily, because I'm also married to an artist, we just split our days down the middle. And
Oh,
so we wake up, we have breakfast together as a family, and then I will pretty much just work until lunchtime. We'll all have lunch together, and then we switch. And then Justin gets until dinner time, and I get to spend time with the kids. And I feel like our kids are really lucky in that sense because they're getting both of us,
yeah.
throughout the day. Um, Before the pandemic, we were so lucky to hire a retired school teacher who would come in the mornings, which was really, really nice because then our family time could be all of us together instead of splitting it up. And we had that for just a couple months until the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
So we're hoping things go back to normal. We could do that again. But it's just a lot of scheduling mostly.
I mean, that sounds great. And was this something that kind of came naturally, like the formation of the split day? Or was there like trial and error in the beginning, like, okay, this is not working?
It's the schedule that we're on. I mean, it's changed a million times. When they were younger, they would take really, really long naps in the middle of the day, so we could get a lot of work
Mhm.
done at nap time. And then when we lost the naps, we didn't know what we were going to do. But this breaking up the day half and half has been working really, really well so far.
I mean, good for you guys. I think that's actually great to hear for other artists being like, it is possible.
Oh yeah.
So the next question then is how, I'm sure you hear this one all the time, but how do you overcome any art blocks that come your way?
Oh my goodness, we do hear this a lot, and
Uh-huh.
that we really have now is not the art block. It's just having enough time in the day to get through all the ideas that you have in your head. So before becoming a parent, I would dedicate nearly all of my time to painting. And now that we have a family, I have to really restructure how I work, because it's not like those ideas just go away. I still have them.
Mhm.
I need to get them out. I just have a fraction of the time to do it. So I think there's a lot of things that you can do. Um, Having good habits, rituals that just get you in the right headspace while you're working. And I think it's important to listen to your body, and what works for you might not work for someone else. And like I mentioned, it's more easy for me to work in the morning, and it's easier for Justin to work in the evening. So the way we split our days, where I feel like we're getting our best working hours during those times.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's important to take care of yourself and just make sure you're getting enough sleep. I find that my work environment affects how much work I'm able to produce. And I like to divide my house basically where I have three dedicated working places depending on what I'm working on. And so, like, this room is my computer room. This is where I do emails and video recording, and that's it. And then I have the area where I paint, and I don't check emails. I don't do anything in that room. It's only for painting. And then an area where I can draw. And I think it helps me get more work done when I'm in one area to do emails. I know that's like my email space. Get it done. Move to the next area. And you don't have to have a very big, house to do something like this. I did the same thing when I lived in an apartment, and like the kitchen was my drawing area, the family room was my painting area. So I think all those things help.
Oh, it's a great way to break it up. I definitely feel like I've been struggling because my main art room is my computer room, but I hate drawing with like two monitors right in front of me. And I've been thinking of ways to break it up, but you know what? Maybe I'll try that. I'm gonna actually give that a try. So the next question then is, how has art defined who you've become?
Hmm. Um, I think art has helped me express myself and communicate with people. I'm kind of an introverted person by nature, but I found that most of my friendships and also even meeting my husband happened because of sharing this thing that I'm so passionate about. I think it's also the thing that centers me as a person. It's very meditative to just sit and work on a project. And really, honestly, if I go a few days without working on something, I start to feel very anxious.
Yeah, I feel that. um, and like, did you feel when you were especially younger, so when you're like your tadpole collecting days, did you feel like that was your way of communicating with other people?
um, even when I was a little kid, the main thing that I would do is draw. And so even when I was collecting tadpoles, it was still so I could draw pictures of them to show people, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. So then the next question is, what would be the best advice you would give to an artist just starting out and then to an artist struggling at where they are currently at?
Ooh, I would say to just keep pushing forward. The truth is that for the most part, you are never going to be happy with where your art is. And that's okay because that's what pushes you to grow. But don't let those insecurities hold you back. Share your work with people, listen to criticisms, but don't let them control you. Um, and also, don't worry about having to find a style right away. That's going to develop and change as you grow.
I want to embellish on that more. So what do you mean when you say that you'll never fully like your work? Because I definitely feel that, and I feel like most people I talk to, especially artists, feel the same way. But why is that? Why do we feel that way?
I think because you see it in your mind when you're working on it, and and you're even seeing the things like what it could be, you know? And so you finish it, it's never going to live up to those expectations that you've created for yourself. Um, but the next piece might. And so when people ask us what our favorite painting is, a lot of times we will say it's the next one.
Oh, you guys are good. You're good. So now, what advice? And this is a good one too, especially since you say this kind of defines like how you feel about your work. Like, what advice would you give about being authentic in your work?
This is short, but I think dedicate your time to pursuing the things that you love and not what you think that other people might love.
How do you do a lot of like pre-planning or like planning ahead? Or like let's say you have a couple images, do you like prioritize them? And then what happens to the ones that like get left behind? Are they always sitting like right there?
Um, I don't know. I keep I tend to work on several paintings at once while
Oh,
I'm
you
working,
do? Okay.
rotating between work. Um, I like I like to finish around 5 paintings, I would say, a month. Um, but there are some that just end up taking longer, or something happens, and it will sit in my studio and haunt me. Um, I have I have two actually that I started before the pandemic happened that I've not had the strength to go back and finish them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think rotating paintings keeps things fresh. But I do always just kind of want to go back eventually and finish them up.
Actually, I want to hear about this. Like, what do you feel are the benefits of having a few different I mean, I guess it's different for oil because you almost have to have like a few circulating. But I always find that I work best when I have like three or four going at the same time. Because then if I ever like bored, or if I'm in an area where I know it's gonna get tedious, I don't want to sit there for 8 hours like rendering, fabric. I need like some other drawing to keep my mind occupied.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's an important thing. It just keeps things interesting. For oils, a lot of it is just out of necessity for dry times.
Mhm.
My paintings have a lot of layers to them. And so, I mean, I might just spend an hour on one of my pieces in a day, but then I could just rotate, go to the next one, and then go to the next one. So that I've put a layer of paint on a few different paintings. So I'm just kind of building them all up at the same time.
Man, and for those of you who have never seen oil in progress, it's crazy because you guys normally go from what is it, dark or light to dark?
Oh,
Oh no, is
not
it
all.
backwards? It's dark to light. I always get them confused because with digital, I always go dark to light. And I'm like, oh, this is the way that oil paint. Then I found out it wasn't. I was like, oh, well, that changed my whole theory.
I think I mean, oil is so versatile that really you could work anyway. I mean, sometimes I start with just the whiteboard and I just start adding my local colors in. Sometimes I like to start
What?
with the board primed completely black. My last, gosh, probably the paintings that I've done for the last 2 years have been starting with a completely black panel, and building up my color that way. Um, or sometimes I start with an underpainting. So
Really? Wow, I would totally would have guessed you had like a dark wash of some kind, whether it be like dark blue or something. No, black. You go dark. I mean, is it hard to pull up I guess maybe not, because even when I was working with powder graphite recently, I mean, you can definitely pull forms in a very different way. It's a very subtractive method of working. I don't know how it is for oil, but I assume it has that similar feel where when you're making leaves, every little brushstroke to create the little shape, it like pulls it out instantly against the background.
right. And then sometimes that might be too bright. And so then the next day I would go over everything that's dried and I'd put like a dark layer over everything. So now it's pushed back. And then I can add
Oh.
another layer of leaves over that and just kind of, it makes it very three-dimensional.
What paint do you work with that it only takes a day-ish to dry?
I use Old Holland mostly.
Okay.
I have some Gamblin and some Charvin. But really, there are certain pigments that dry very quickly. Anything with the word umber in it.
Oh,
So I work with green umber and red umber. Um, but then my studio is pretty much like a greenhouse. And so the paintings, I mean, they dry so quickly during the summer. I have a little bit, a longer dry time in the winter.
I think you shared an image recently where it was like the back of your house, I believe. And that's the studio you're talking about, where it's kind of the greenhouse. I mean,
Yeah,
that's gorgeous.
thank
Did
you.
Wait, is that where your beautiful fish is located or no?
No.
Okay. That's great. I mean, I feel like you kind of have this dream setting for an artist to be like surrounded by foliage. And you guys don't get really bad winters, so it's not like everything dies in
We've
the
planted
wintertime.
all around my studio. We planted a garden, and it's mostly all evergreen plants because I just really like. I don't know. It's important to me to be surrounded by, since I paint so much foliage, to be surrounded by all this greenery. Um, and I do find that it's the most difficult for me to paint during the winter, just because things are a little bit more gray outside. And the studio is completely all windows, and so that's just what I'm looking at. So during the winter, I tend to do more like computery type things or drawings or video editing.
Yeah. Oh, it's very interesting. I like that. Okay, so you actually answered all 10 questions already. So we're opening the floor up already. You've been one of the best, like most concise artists I've talked to. I mean, I've talked to like Villarte and Pete, and like him and I, and like Miles Art especially. Like we can just talk, and it's just like goes. But you're like, no, I came prepared. I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and I'm keeping to it. So, for those of you who are watching, if you want to put your at Vonnart, then I will type down the question. We'll go in an order here. And I'll throw in a few of my own because I'm definitely curious, as I am also a fan of your work. And I have some questions. But we'll start off with the community. So, this one's from Ferdia Art. And they ask, do you use references and how do you come up with ideas?
I do, yeah. There's a few different models that I like to work with. Uh, I don't always work with models, but I do find that it's helpful when you're trying to get lighting down, especially anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then again, because I'm surrounded by so much greenery, I'm constantly referencing around me, just outside the windows. Or as I mentioned before, I use my fish a lot.
Yeah.
I put them in my paintings. So yeah.
I had no idea you use models. So do you usually just have them take pictures either from their own place, or do you have a photographer then take pictures of the models, or do you take pictures of the models?
All.
Oh.
All of the
D, all of the above.
I like it the most when they can come here. And I have my drawings, or especially for a big project. When I did I illustrated a copy of Phantom of the Opera for Easton Press, and because I need to have these characters and so many different, across so many different pages, and they need to look consistent. I did hire models for that one. Um,
Mm.
and really, from that photo shoot, I've done so many paintings that have nothing to do with Phantom of the Opera, but just work with what I'm doing.
So, okay, hold on. Question then. Have you ever used Justin as a stand-in if you ever need like
Yep,
a male character?
like all of the animal paintings, all the one I did recently, Lizard Wizard. He was every single.
What? No way. Wait.
And the game before that, Raccoon Tycoon, he was all those little animals.
Wait. Are these humanoid animals for all of them? Or are they
They're
just
like
like animals?
they're like animals, but they're I guess slightly anthropomorphic.
Okay, so like Fantastic Mr. Fox or something.
Yeah,
So, would you ever draw Justin in his elegance that he is as like a male portrait study, or is he always going to be like a gopher?
yeah. I used him. Gosh, I used him in the Easton Press book for the Phantom.
Okay,
Uh,
God, still not doing him any compliments.
what else? There was an alternate history painting that I did of the Romanov family, and he was a couple of characters in that.
I assume
Uh,
not the bad one. Okay.
gosh, I I mean, I feel like I've used them for a lot of things. Yeah.
But mostly animals. Okay, all right. So then the next question comes from Mayaraina. Oh, I'm so sorry if I mispronounce these, but they are asking, are you into any anime?
Gosh, the last anime that I watched, I think was Trigun.
Ah, yeah, I saw Dragon.
I was a kid, and I don't think I've really. I mean, does Miyazaki count as anime?
You know, I just had a debate with someone about this because my best friend, she's a fitness trainer. She claims she hates anime, even though she studied in Japan for half a year. And I was like, but you haven't seen any Miyazaki films. She's like, well, I'll hate them because they're anime. And I was like, well, I don't know if I would call them anime, but
Right.
apparently we did research and apparently they would fall under anime,
Mhm.
unfortunately. Because I think instead of calling like Spirited Away an anime, I call it a masterpiece.
It is. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, so I'm assuming you've seen all those for the most part.
Oh, yeah. I think one of the first, my grandma would bring me home My Neighbor Totoro on a VHS tape, and I watched it so many times that she illegally copied it from me.
Your grandma did?
Sorry, Grandma, if you're watching this.
How did she know how to do that? Like there wasn't internet around at that time. She had to like ask around.
You take two tapes and you would like, there's like a special machine and you put both of them in at the same time and it would like record to the other one. It's
You,
ancient technologies.
it's funny. The only time I've ever seen that was in the movie The Ring when she has to copy the VHS, and there's that machine where there's two. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I the only instance I have watching my parent they are not artists. My family is like the opposite of what you would consider art people. And I only watched Disney until I was like 11. And then I was like, you know what? I want Spirited Away for Christmas. So we got it, and my mom and I watched it together. I was like entranced. I thought it was the best thing I've ever seen. My mom, on the other hand, was like, Tim, that was weird. Like I'm gushing about it, and she's like, what did you make me watch? And imagine like this 11-year-old boy being like, that was the best thing I've ever seen. But weirdly, I didn't see Totoro until I was later in life, and it's great. But a lot of artists I talk to, usually that's the one that was like on rerun over and over and over and over.
And back then, like I feel like even Nickelodeon played what would be considered to be anime. They had a fairy tale series that looked the same type of style as Miyazaki. There were a
What?
whole bunch of like cartoons back in the 80s that were that style that I was just in love with when I was a kid.
Wait, on Nickelodeon? What was it called?
I have no idea.
Oh,
Grimm's fairy tales. It was just the classic fairy tales, but it was animated.
I need to look. I'm usually pretty good about this kind of stuff. I need to look that up. It was on Nick. Are you sure Nickelodeon?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've never heard of it. Well, anyways, okay. See, I tend to ramble, so sorry about that. The next question is from Fish Love Crackers, and they are asking, over the years, what was your main way of improving your own art?
I think just creating a lot of it. Just just keep going, keep making stuff. Um, there are some paintings that will probably never see the light of day, but it's helped me grow as an artist. I think I really do think that's the
Mhm.
best way.
So then, would you also say that like that you got to draw 10,000 crappy drawings to start drawing good ones? Mentality is kind of what you agree with. Okay, because I used to not think it, and then I realized, oh no, I have drawn a lot. Because I was one of those big like, oh no, you should always push for quality over quantity. But I feel like a lot of people that do push for quality, they're so dissatisfied with whatever they create, they move on really quickly to the next one. And they're not even realizing it, but they're getting better because they are actually pushing a lot of quantity because they're pulling for quality.
Oh yeah.
And I'm assuming that's the same way with you. If those were your 15 years ago, I can only imagine, how many pieces even up to that point you must have done.
Oh
Because
yeah. It's all the time.
actually, I kind of a side question for you is because digital art really didn't become a thing until like somewhere in the 2000s. were you working full time when that transition happened, and were you only working digital at that job, or were they letting you work traditional there?
Um, I wanted to work traditionally, but there was a big push for digital.
Mm.
Um, so like I had the Wacom tablet first, and then I switched to the Cintiqs. But I've just never really. I understand why you need to do that type of work for commercial purposes. It's easy to fix corrections and everything, but there's something about having that separation of the screen that I just don't feel connected to the artwork in the same way.
Mhm. I feel the same way. And it was funny, my dad gave me some of these old magazines from like the 60s and 70s, and a lot of the advertisements were drawn or they were painted. Like even
Mhm.
for deodorant or it's like something more like trivial. And I was like, man, you never see this anymore. Like
Right.
imagining opening a magazine and there's an ad for like tomato soup, but it's like a painted. I don't know. I wish we could have more of that, but I also understand, like financially, it doesn't make sense to do it. But
Right.
I think it's cool. I want to see more of it. So the next question is from Frosty Flakes, and they're asking, what is your favorite warm up and then warm down before and after a painting?
Oh, warm up. Um,
Or do you just go at it?
it just goes back into the creating a ritual for yourself. Um, to warm up, I like to have my hot tea or hot coffee. Um,
Mhm.
I like to have my whatever, if I'm watching a show or a podcast, that ready to go. And then it's just getting right to it. And then warming down there or cooling down, there's definitely no, it's now it's my turn to watch the kids.
Ah! Okay, well then this question's from Vonnart. He's asking, when you finish a piece, do you feel like you get the personal satisfaction or like the gratification after you post it on social media? Or is it before, like that moment you have where only you and maybe Justin are the only people that have seen it, and like that's the only time that it's yours, and then you share it with the world?
Uh, I think the time that it's just yours is the best time. And then the second that you post it is when it's just like, I'm done with this. I need to start thinking about the next piece. I wish, did I do the right thing by posting it? Should I put a few more layers on? Was it really ready? Um, so I do think there's like that one golden moment before you let the world see it that you will like the piece the most. And then from there, it's just downhill.
That's so true, because then I don't know how you feel about it, but I definitely view my art differently. And it's maybe subconsciously, but depending on the reaction it gets socially, I view it differently. Like if I post a drawing and I'm like, oh, this was okay. And then if it's like really well received, I'm like, oh, well, maybe this was something more, and I just didn't see it. But then if I really am into it, but it's not well received, it does. I hate to admit it, but I feel like it does tarnish my relationship with that drawing a little bit because
Yeah.
it has that connection. I don't know. Do you feel like you associate any of that with your work?
I I definitely try not to, just because I
Mm-hmm.
know so many factors, just depending on what day did you post it, what time did you post it. Like there's so many other things. And then you can always just try posting it again later. I do a
Ah!
lot of. I don't like to repost anything for 3 months, and so I'll give something 3 months and then post it again and see if it has the same reaction.
Does it normally, or do you feel like you do have seen it like sway?
It's different because there's just so much that depends on the time of day that you post something, the day that you post something, what's happening in the world at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think that's why I'm it's great that like Throwback Thursdays is a thing, because then like it's an excuse to throw out old art, and then no one's gonna look at you and be like, oh, what are you doing? The next question comes from Jada, and they're saying, what caused your hand slash wrist problem in the early days when you worked with watercolor? Did something happen to you?
Uh, no, I think it's just the way that I hold my pencil kind of.
Wait, how do you hold your pencil?
I hold my pencil. I think you're supposed to hold a pencil like this, right? and I hold it like this, where I kind of push it against this. I don't know. I hold my pencil like in this way. But anyway, it would just cause my hand to get, like, cramped up, and because I bear down so hard when I work with pencil, like by the end of the day, my whole hand would just be like red and swollen, and
Oh my
I
God.
thought it was going to give me arthritis if I kept doing it.
I mean, that's
So
pretty bad, Annie. I mean, have you switched your technique when working with oil? I assume you're more of a lighter.
definitely paint differently. I hold the paintbrush the same, but because I'm not having to bear down and it's just lightly brushing, that doesn't happen to me. So
Okay, so it's a very much like heavy-handed, just with like pencils.
yeah, I don't know why that is. I guess because if I want really really dark shadows, or I was working with a lot of Prismacolor, but yeah, I would just bear down really really hard.
I mean, admittedly, you do kind of have to push down quite a bit. I mean, all
Yeah.
my drawings, oh, I don't know if I should admit this live, but I do use the filters in Instagram to make them a little darker because I am a very light-handed artist. So my
Mhm.
drawings are always a little lighter in person, just a little bit. But when I go dark, like it's a struggle for me because I'm like layering after layering, and I'm working with like 6Bs, 8Bs. I'm just trying to get it dark, but you do have to put a little oomph into the paper. The next question comes from Cassiopeia and says, when you started as an artist, did you start small, like not as known in the media as compared to today? So, like, I guess, did you have a social media presence when you really started becoming an artist?
No, not really. I mean, I feel like I was even pretty late to Instagram. I didn't think that Instagram was going to be a thing until it was already like a really, really big thing. I think that Justin and I didn't get Instagrams until after we were married. Well, after we were married. And in fact, I made one first, and then I made Justin make one. And we went through this huge struggle because I thought that maybe I should just make one and it would be both of our art, because I didn't think that he would ever post anything. But a long time ago, I would post work to DeviantArt.
Mhm.
I feel like there were a few other sites that probably don't exist anymore. I think one of them was called like Artican,
Or like
or something.
CG Hub.
Some yeah. Oh yeah. See yeah. CG was it CG Talk was one.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, it's just something that I think that I mean, that there are people that follow me now that followed me back in those days, and so I do think it's something that just takes a while to build up.
Actually, I guess elaborating on this question, how do you feel about the way social media has affected the way, especially younger artists, see their work and then also how they create their work?
Hmm. Um, I mean, I feel like social media is really, really great for sharing work. I don't think anybody should say that their worth is based on how many followers they have. There are a million artists that are a billion times better than I am that have like just no following at all. And I know it's just because of superficial things like not posting on the right day or not posting as often as they should. But it definitely doesn't determine your worth as an artist. I do think social media is amazing for marketing yourself. You know, nowadays people don't have to have agents. You don't have to rely on galleries. You can sell paintings, original paintings from your own website, and not have to worry about those things. Um, so it definitely has, positives and negatives.
Yeah. And actually, that leads into our next question from Alexander and says, what was the first gallery you worked with and how did they find you slash approach you?
Um, the first gallery I worked with, I actually just applied for a job there when I was in college.
Oh,
And it was mostly me framing other people's work, and helping put together shows and everything. The gallery owner did not know that I was an artist because I was too afraid to tell. But then there was one Christmas that I painted a portrait of my grandfather, and I brought it into the gallery to be framed. But also, I kind of wanted the gallery owner just to see it.
ah!
He liked it so much that he hung it up, and from there I got a whole bunch of commissions. Then I had my first gallery show at that gallery. And actually, it was alongside my grandpa. Me and my grandpa both had a joint show together
Oh, oh,
there.
that's cool.
It was just so much fun. And then from there, I would say every gallery that's approached me has just found me on social media. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not one that likes to go and um, approach galleries, I guess, or approach jobs. I'd rather them see my work and come to me if they think that it's a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you're like, just come to me. I don't have time to go out and talk with you guys. But I
It's so,
do the what?
it would be so scary.
I mean, I couldn't see anyone saying no to you, but the next question is from Jim, and they're asking, is there anything in your art, subject matter, or style that you have never explored but you would really like to?
Hmm. Gosh, I would like to. I think I would like to get back to maybe trying more sculpture. In high school, I did a
Mm.
whole bunch of sculpture, and then I put it down for a long time. I picked it up again to make some maquettes for painting. Um, but then I put it down, and that's something that I'd really like to explore with building more sets and creating more maquettes to just help kind of push my paintings a little bit further. Sculpture classes, but the school is definitely more geared towards computer animation
Mhm.
and games and concept art. Um, but it's always something that I've liked.
Oh gosh, I'm copying this next question, but I'm already going to mispronounce part of their question, so I'm going to do my best here. This one's from Alexi, and they're asking, hello, dear Annie. Do you know the work of Remedios Varo and Leonora Carrington? And if so, what do you think? From which artists you have taken inspiration to create your own universe?
I don't think I'm familiar with those
I don't know
artists.
those names either.
Um, I think my influences have changed a lot over the years. Definitely, there was a lot of influences from Bouguereau, um, from like my 10-year block of images that I shared with you. Um, before that, a lot of Art Nouveau with the borders and everything. Um, anything during the Rococo period, I'm very influenced by. But you know, it's that's also something that's constantly changing, and I hope
I
that
guess
answers good.
I'm a little curious. Would you ever step into the realm of horror? Like if you were asked to illustrate like a remake of like an older horror series, would you say yes?
There is, yes,
You
there
would.
is
Okay.
that I've been planning for a while. I haven't known when I should exactly. I don't want to say what it is because sometimes I feel like if you talk about a project before you start it, you'll never finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I guess the short answer is yes.
Because I have a feeling you just would do really good. Because a lot of horror, and I think why I'm always attracted to drawing things a little more horrific in like certain images. Like if I'm going to draw things pretty, it's going to be like floral and pretty. But then when I draw things that are considered ugly, I feel like you can really go ham on like textures and. Uh, I mean, seeing your work, you're so good with texture. I can only imagine if you did like a Frankenstein or something. Like you would really have fun with those organics.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely.
Plus, I think it'd be great. This one's from Jim, and they're asking, "Is there anything in your art?" Oh no, we already got that one. Sorry, Sarah, and they're saying your favorite art business educators or courses you've invested in.
Uh, I am ashamed to say I haven't invested in any courses. It's been just a lot of trial and error.
Oh,
Um, yeah, just a lot of trial and error, I guess. Because I know that everybody for what works for me might not work for other people, and
hmm.
I've been fortunate enough to um, have taught at workshops like with you, Tim, where I am hearing from other people um, how they handle business and everything. And so um, we did a conference, the Fantastic Arts Conference in Utah, where we talked about a lot of things, and it's very interesting seeing the different artists, how people approach it. But yeah, I haven't like formally taken a class.
That does surprise me a little bit, but I totally get what you mean about like going to workshops and you learn from them, and I feel like it's the best type of learning because you didn't like sign up for it, so I feel like you're more open to like I don't know, at least when I've gone to the workshops, I've learned so much and it was unexpected. It was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's right, like these are other artists that are also giving like advice and giving their presentations because I get so nervous making my own presentation, but then after when you're there, you're like, oh, that's right. Like I get to learn a lot here as well.
Mhm.
So that's great. Oh, this one's from Laura, and this she's asking, how do you keep going during bad days?
Um, I guess really art is the thing that makes me happy. And so if I'm having a bad day, all I want to be doing is painting. And what's more difficult is if I'm having a bad day and there's something that's keeping me from painting. Um,
Hmm.
but if you're stuck on a piece of work or just something's not working, you can always just pick up another piece of paper, another board, and just start something fresh.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And do you ever give yourself or allow yourself like days where either you're burnt out or you had like a really big piece that you just finished and you're like, okay, I'm gonna give myself a day just kind of to do nothing? Or do you jump usually right into things the next day?
Oh, it. I guess it depends. A lot of times, right as I'm ending a project, I already have this new. I mean, the whole time you're working on a painting, I'm sure you do the same thing. You're secretly just thinking about the next painting.
Yeah.
So when you finish it, you're just already ready. Your mind is already there, and this new thing that you're going to make that's
Yeah.
going to be the best thing in the world. It's going to be the best thing that you've ever done. But having said that, I do think it's good to have other hobbies, other things that you do. I like to do a lot of gardening, especially gardening around the studio. And both Justin and I enjoy hiking and just getting outside.
Okay, wait. Follow up questions to that. Then what's your favorite thing to harvest?
Well, all of my plants are not like food plants.
Oh. Okay, wait. Better question. Better question. What's been your favorite thing you've grown then?
Oh, I have a really beautiful limelight hydrangea that is right outside
Mm.
the studio, and it kind of spreads. And during the summer, I have little green anoles that actually climb into the little flower pot, and it's just like I don't know, it's so magical. It's like it just a beautiful little castle for a lizard.
I mean, when I went to go visit Florida, they're everywhere.
Oh yeah,
Is that just everywhere in the South? I guess I haven't spent that much time in like the southern hemisphere at all. Are they just
we
everywhere and it's
we get a ton of lizards. I mean, there. If I put a wreath on my door during summer and I close the door, there'll just be lizards just falling out. Scaring. We have to catch them. They're in the house. Um, so we definitely get a lot of different types of lizards here.
what? So this is like a common thing. This is like a nuisance.
Oh, it's not a nuisance.
Or okay,
I know that some people maybe would think it's a nuisance, but I love
actually, I should even say that they're a nuisance because I don't know. Maybe this is a northern thing, but I've like made peace with bugs, like insects, and especially ones that I used to be terrified of. Like I was just telling Josh last week, there was a house centipede in our basement, and I was doing my laundry because that's where the laundry is, and I remember seeing him like scuttle out from under the machine, and I kind of looked at him and I was like, good day, sir. And I like just kept doing my thing. I didn't like take him outside. I didn't squish him. I didn't like scream. I was like, you know what? I think I just made peace with the fact that they're always gonna be there.
it.
I don't know. I'm a lot of people still have horror stories where if they see any thing, I feel like a gecko would be more intimidating. Maybe no.
No, they're cute. I think the bad thing that we have here, mosquitoes, obviously. But then the lizards eat the mosquitoes, so you want them around your house. But we're
Oh,
talking about this. Just I think it was, yeah, it was either yesterday or the day before. We have a giant orb weaver spider that makes this giant web, and he places it in different places in our yard every night. And the fear is that you're going to walk through it and have an orb weaver stuck to your face. Well, my my little son, he walks out my back studio face first into this spider web, while Justin's outside. This He has a spider web all over his face, all over his hair, and the orb weaver is trapped in the spider web on top of his head. It's like my worst nightmare, just horrible. Um, yeah, but those definitely. I mean, but even having said that, I like that we have those because again, they get mosquitoes, but I don't want to walk through a web.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's so funny. I feel weirdly akin with spiders. I actually like spiders and I like seeing them. My old roommate told me if you see a white spider, it means like good luck's happening to you that day. And we, for whatever reason, in Wisconsin, we have a lot of like white spiders. So
Really?
yeah, it's very strange. And I'm like, Josh, don't touch it. And I was like, this is luck. This is like, we have a really big one near our hot tub, and I always get so nervous when you take the lid off that it's gonna like go on your hand or something. But I'm more afraid of killing it rather than like it on me. Oh, actually, wait. I want to know what you would do because I was in a moral dilemma when I went to Australia because I was there for a convention, but we went hiking with my friend that lives out there, and I actually found a black widow, like a natural black widow, on the camping trail or on the hiking trail, and I was in this dilemma of do I kill it because this could potentially kill another human life, but then I'm like, but then am I just killing it out of the fear that it's going to do harm to another person? I had like it was like 20 minutes. I made my friend wait while I was like sitting with the spider deciding what I was going to do with it.
Oh my goodness.
Would that have been like instant squash, or would that be just leave it be?
I outside, I don't think I would have squashed it on a trail. A long time ago, I think I would have, definitely not at all. But now, after having kids, it's like if there's something really poisonous in our yard or somewhere, no, it has to go.
Yeah.
It's scary.
That's where my dilemma was. I'm not even a parent, but I was like already thinking of that. I did end up killing it. And weirdly, that's probably the biggest regret I have in life, which I guess isn't that bad if that's the biggest one I have. But it's one that I still think about from time to time.
A thing you can do with spiders is, I don't know, you probably already know this, but if you have a headlamp and you go out at night, wolf spiders, their eyes glitter like how, like a cat's eyes would glitter at night. And so if you don't have a headlamp, you can hold a flashlight up with your vision, and just, it has to be the same as your eye line. But if you just like kind of sweep over the grass at night, you'll see little sparkles.
No way.
A lot of times it's dew, but if the sparkles like a chromatic color, so if you see like pink and green and blue, then that's how you know it's a spider, and you can go and there'll be like a giant wolf spider there. So that's a cool way to, I don't know.
Okay, wait, hold on. I have a few questions for you just from that. One, I don't know what a headlamp is. Is that like the miner? Like there's a
miner, like a little miner thing.
Do you have one? Is that something that people just have in the South?
Justin, it was actually, I learned this from Justin. I think he had his from, why did you have one? From running at night?
Yeah, running, biking.
Running, biking, and backpacking, he says. And so he learned about this trick. And so one of the first times he came here, as a present, he presented me with my very own headlamp. But it's crazy. It's really cool.
So you have your own like headband flashlight too?
Oh yeah.
Wait, and then you said this also works on cats, son?
Well, like any like nighttime animals.
Oh my god, my poor cat. I'm gonna like come out like tonight. I'm gonna do this. I have a flashlight. I'm gonna like hold it right here and then turn off all the lights and like try to find her. But I'm gonna actually try that thing with the spiders outside. I've never heard of that.
Cool. If it's really cold there, I don't know how many you'll find during this time of year, but we still have them here.
It is pretty cold, but usually that's why they sneak into the house.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you guys get this. If your pests are more geckos, I'm totally tangenting right now. I'm sorry, but if you get more like these anoles, do you not really get mice as much then?
There are, I mean, I know this is like, I shouldn't be doing this, but I have a little nature camera and I like to see the animals and I like to see what types of animals I'll get. And so I leave out like corn and different seeds and I leave it right outside of my studio door. And so I do see little mice coming up. I know I shouldn't do this because they're probably we haven't thankfully had any in my house yet. But I do see like little mice and things out there.
Okay, because I know like we get at least like 2 mice in the house every year. So
Mhm.
it's like this weird ordeal trying to capture them. And then we had cats, but it was Key's cat actually. She would catch the mice, but the problem is the cat would bring it to you and like present it to you like a gift, but then
Oh,
drop it. But it was still alive. So then it's like, like what did you just bring me? um,
oh,
but my favorite story of the mouse, and then I'll stop tangenting, is I call the mouse Cake because we found him. Well, I should give the context. It was someone's birthday the night before, and we had a cake that had like the plastic lid on it, but we left it in the kitchen. One of us must not have fully closed it because then in the next morning I went to go wash the dishes and I look over. There's a mouse like burrowed in the cake. But I don't think he realized it he must have slipped himself in somehow, but by doing it, the lid actually was shut all the way around. So he made his own mouse trap. So I was like looking at this mouse for a while. I was like, how the hell did you get in? Um, so of course I named him Cake, and then I took him to a park that was like 3 miles away. And I was joking with Sean. I'm like, this is a Disney movie in the making. It's gonna have this mouse like returning back to my house and the adventure that he takes along the way, like meeting critters and adventures. Um, so now, I actually don't mind seeing mice, but
mhm.
anoles I think would scare me a little bit because they do bite. I know they probably don't hurt at all.
Oh, I
Do
don't
they?
know. They don't bite.
Oh,
I
they
mean,
don't.
I'm sure somebody somewhere has been bitten by one, but I mean, like we pick them up all the time. I don't think I've ever been bitten
Okay, that makes me feel a little better then. Oh, actually, yeah. Josh mentioned in the comments we actually had a bunny get into our house.
by
Um,
one.
okay, a final story, and then I'll stop tangenting. I promise. We have a bonfire in the backyard, and then we were collecting the wood to put on top of it, but we were doing it with a shovel. Mind you, the campfire is going; it's burning really brightly. I shovel a log, and as I throw it on, an explosion of bunnies happens at my feet, and I realize I unearthed like a bunny house.
Are these
And
did you post these? Were these the
yes,
videos? I saw those. They're so cute.
oh, did you really? Well, imagine I thought these were rats. And not only am I freaking out, but one of them jumped. I didn't post this on Instagram because it's kind of morbid, but one of the bunnies jumped into the fire. So
Tim,
I'm
this.
Well, no, hold on. It gets better because in my panic sense of mind, I think because I'm still one of those like animal psycho people. So like immediately, I'm like, even if there's rats on my feet right now, I have to get this rat out of the fire. So I'm like trying to dig in this fire, and I'm throwing logs of fire across my yard. I mean, not that far, like 4 feet, but the bunny when I tried to get in it, it jumped further in. So I literally grabbed like the deepest part of the fire and like threw it to the side. All of them scampered around. So for the next half hour, me and Josh are looking for what we thought were rats, but then we kind of quickly deciphered they were bunnies. But they were so young, they were still blind.
Mhm.
So you just kind of hear them. They're like making weird noises and they're running into things. Uh, they were really good at hiding. So we brought our cat out, and our cat was able to like get them. But as soon as she would get like close to him, we would like hold the cat and then get the buns. But anyways, there have been like 10 plus rabbits in our backyard this whole summer, because apparently our backyard is like the sanctuary now for bunnies. And
Oh,
one time we left our back door open and a bunny jumped in, and the problem was we lost it in the house. So imagine us looking for a bunny in our house, and like we're hoping the cat will do something, but the cat's not doing much. We eventually find it, but we can't get it out. The end of the story is, I guess the moral of it is, it was in our house for about 24 hours, and then eventually we found it under a couch.
oh,
So we have like the weirdest adventures with critters in our house in Wisconsin. It's so strange. Anyways, I promised I would stop tangenting. I'll get to more of the questions here. Okay, sorry about that. But this one's from Felix, and they say, do you use any transparent pigments for glazing? And how long do you wait between layers to prevent cracking?
Um, Gosh, I pretty much stick with the same palette for a lot of my pieces. I think I mentioned any paints that have the word umber in them, which are really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thin my paint with, so even if there is a piece that's not, or a paint that's not traditionally transparent, I will thin it using walnut alkyd. And so that way I can create these very thin transparent layers with any of the paints that I have.
Yeah.
Um, but I work really, really thin. But I think that, I mean, just as it, like I said, like a day normally it takes for each layer to dry. But I haven't had any trouble with cracking or anything.
Oh, ever?
Mm-mm.
Oh, that is surprising. I mean,
We don't use any toxic mediums, and which is why I paint mostly with the walnut oil. But there are some really quick dryers like Liquin and things like that that I know people like to paint with them, but I don't know about the longevity of your piece. It just seems like it would cause trouble in the end, just because it's such a new thing, you know.
and I mean that one of the next questions is actually about that. They ask, they've been trying to break into oil painting, but they always hear nightmare stories about being poisoned by the medium. And they only have a bedroom to work as a workspace. What would you recommend then?
I mean, you can just really paint with just the straight pigment. And if you need to thin it, you can use walnut oil, linseed oil. Um,
Hmm.
and you can clean your brushes just using soap and water. You don't have to use turpentine.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did you ever use turpentine or no?
Yeah, a long time ago, I didn't know that. They didn't teach us that in art school. I would just have like a bucket of turpentine with all my paintbrushes in it, and I would use turpentine to thin my paint, and I would just splash it on there. I read an article through Muddy Colors about studio safety that scared me to death. It's all about the ventilation and all these things that will kill you. So anyway, fast forward, I meet Justin. Justin's telling me about all these studio safety things, and I was like, I have an article for you that I read on Muddy Colors a long time ago. It turns out he was the one that wrote it.
No way, really?
Yep.
Oh my god. I mean, that's pretty great. Um, this one's actually it does. So Justin's always been preoccupied with like the safety of working with oils.
Yeah.
Because admittedly, I was kind of like you, where I just had turpentine when I mean, I barely worked with oils, but I did the same thing. I'd throw my brushes in it, and then whenever I would, I'd pull them out.
Hmm.
And I just learned recently, apparently, powdered graphite's really bad for you.
Is it because of like inhaling it?
To be honest, I still have to do research because I was talking to Babs Webb about it, and she said that I shouldn't let my skin touch it for too long for some reason. She's like, it's bad for, and I was like, oh, is it really?
Oh,
And
wow.
to people listening, this isn't factual. I haven't confirmed anything yet. I got to do research, but it is funny when you work with a medium for so long and then you learn like how bad it might actually be for you, and you're like, why? Where was I this whole time? Like how did I miss this? Okay, so the next question's from Jim, and they said, who is your favorite artist that is most unlike your own style? Actually, I'm
Oh,
kind of curious to hear this too.
um, uh, I would say Alan Williams. I really, really, really admire his work. Um, and I would say that's pretty different. Um, who else? Um, Gosh, he's the big one that's coming to mind. I mean, I admire your work, Tim, of course.
Oh,
Um,
get out of here.
Even Justin. I feel like our work is very different, but it looks good together. But
They're like good companions.
yeah, it's very different. The way which he works is very different.
I mean, I don't know if you know this. I'm sure maybe you're getting hints of it just from this interview. But whenever people ask me about like the best artists, I always say you and Justin are the best oil painters working today. And I always like, I awkwardly am. I'm that person at cons that I'll pull up my Instagram. I'll be like, okay, just wait. I promise, just look at their stuff.
No, the second you ask me this question, every name of any artist in the world is a.
The what? Wait, I missed that.
The second you ask me the question, every artist's name is erased from my mind.
Oh, right? I feel that same way at conventions. Like there's certain questions I get where I'm like, I already have a preset answer. And I'm sure you get this too whenever they ask, like, what does this piece mean? And you're like, okay, let me go into my brain files. Oh, yes, this is what I say about this drawing or whatever. But then, like, oddly specific questions, I'm like, oh, why can't I think? Like, if anyone asks me, like, either directors or movies, usually if I'm just, like, hanging out with friends, I can tell you anything. But at a con, I blank. And I'm like, it's a little embarrassing. Oh, actually, this is a good question from Lobi. Considering you have a lot of pets, how do you avoid getting any lint and stray hairs on wet paintings that you're working on? Oh, and you have long hair too.
My the place that I paint is pretty like pet free. My kitty cat's allowed in there. My dog's allowed in. She doesn't really shed that much, but I have like an air filter to suck up all the dust. And it's just really like the paintings always have to be up high while they're drying. Thankfully, since I do have such short dry times because of painting in the thin layers and being in the sunroom, there's not too much time for dust to settle on the surface. I think using lint-free rags is important.
Wait, what's a lint-free rag? Or rag?
It's just like a rag that doesn't have like that. You know, like a paper towel will have that fuzzy.
Yeah.
Rag without the fuzzies.
I have never heard of these before.
It's like kind of like a t-shirt material.
Oh, like a microfiber glass cleaning cloth. Or no.
Maybe. It's just like a rag that doesn't have like that. You know, like a paper towel will have that fuzzy.
Yeah.
Rag without the fuzzy.
Oh, like I have never heard of these before. My audio is coming through my own screen. Oh, there we go. That was really weird for a second. I was like trying to Google it and then I clicked on my own YouTube thing and then it like opened. Sorry about that. But I would actually kind of want one of these because when I'm working with, especially powdered graphite, Babs taught me to use paper towel and like smudge it around. But sometimes I don't like the little fibers that it leaves behind. Huh.
Yeah, I think you can get them just like on Amazon.
I'm literally going to buy some of those tonight. Okay, well, we got through, let's see. Well, if any of you want to ask any more questions, we'll ask like one or two because I have one or two of my own I'll ask first. So these are going to be more fun ones, hopefully for you, because I'm sure you already kind of guessed I'm a big film nerd, and I love talking to you about films. I still haven't seen Thanksgiving, but I plan on watching it before Halloween. I did watch The Devil's Backbone last weekend.
How did you get?
So I did like it, but I was curious because I watched a lot of the special features. I didn't realize that Del Toro planned this. For any of you watching it, it's the same director as Pan's Labyrinth, and I didn't know that they were supposed to be companion films because as I was watching it, I was like, man, this feels like the same feel as Pan's Labyrinth, but just not as like fantastical. Because I was expecting a horror because you recommended Creep last year, and it was the most uncomfortable viewing experience I've had in a long time. So I was expecting that same level. I think I had so much like tension built up. I was like, "Oops, it's gonna get me anytime now." But it was actually more of like a fantasy story.
I think I guess it's almost like how I feel about the Orphanage, Devil's Backbone. And it's almost, they have horror elements to them, but they're definitely not pure horror movies.
No, so that's my question for you. I want to know, what would you recommend as like a pure horror movie? Because we still have like a week and a handful of days left, and I'm trying to like get a bunch in before the end of October.
Oh my goodness. I wish I could, again, I'm blanking on all the names. This year has been so weird because normally I like to watch one horror movie a day during October while I do my Inktober's.
I remember hearing that from Justin's stream. That's crazy.
But I do Inktober this year, and it's almost like we're currently living in a horror movie. So I just haven't had the strength, um, to go through my normal movie marathon. And then when I did a few days ago, there is a movie I really wanted to see called Starfish. And it's billed as like an apocalyptic horror movie. And I didn't know anything about it. But I read the tagline, and just the tagline was like, a woman grieves loss as the world comes to an end.
Oh,
On Amazon. And so I'm like, I'm gonna, get back into the October groove. It's almost Halloween, and I'm going to watch this horror movie. I'm really excited. And normally when I'm watching a movie, I'm painting or drawing or something. And this time I'm like, no, I'm going to devote all my attention. I'm going to watch this. I'm really, really excited. And so the movie starts, and it's like really low budget.
oh.
And I'm like, well, this is probably an indie movie, but it got rated really, really, really good. So I'm gonna stick it out. And then the acting was really like a Lifetime, it was very much a Lifetime original movie. But I'm gonna keep watching this movie. I know it's gonna turn around, and it's gonna be even crazier, and the payoff is gonna be huge when this Lifetime original movie turns into like this apocalyptic horror movie.
Yeah.
And the movie's about this woman who lost her father, and she lost her dog, and she's grieving about it. And she lives by the sea, and I'm imagining like, okay, so like Cthulhu is going to come out of the ocean. It's really crazy. I watched this movie. I watched the entirety of this movie, and then it's just over. It's just over. And then I realized there are 2 movies called Starfish on Amazon, and they have the same tagline.
No, they don't. Do they really?
Like a woman grieves over like losing a friend. Like they're it's like the same thing. I didn't watch any trailers or anything because I wanted to be surprised, and so the whole time I was tricked. So I'm gonna try to watch the Starfish that I intended to see.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, this actually makes me feel really good because I was on Amazon as well, and I started to watch what I thought was Westworld, the show. And the whole time I'm like, wow, this has like a really 70s feel to it. Like they really captured that feeling. It wasn't until the end of the movie that I realized it wasn't an episode. That I watched the Westworld movie from 1970 whatever. And I thought it was the TV show. So it was like that same moment of realization hitting like a truck where you're like, oh my god, I didn't find out until the end that this was the wrong thing.
So disappointing.
So then technically you still haven't seen the Starfish that you wanted to.
And I think it's either on Amazon or Hulu, but I do plan on watching that one. I watched a really, really fun 80s one it was called something like Demon Night or Night of the Demons. That one was also, I think that one was on Amazon Prime. But it was it was a real fun, just super duper 80s movie.
Well, I'm assuming you've like scrolled through the Amazon Prime ones because that's primarily what I've been watching this October. There's so many 70s and 80s horror on it that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Like I watched like Monster Ball or like Monster Party and then Phantasm or something. Just like back to like films I've never heard of, and I'm like, you know what? These are a little campy and they're not the greatest, but they're definitely great like background fodder, you know?
I love the 80s ones. I think they're so funny.
So there hasn't been like a horror though that you've seen that you would recommend this year.
Wait, what do you say, Justin? Cats?
The musical.
Oh, it was on the other night. It was on HBO. I just want to see a little bit. What is this movie that everybody's been talking about? Oh my gosh, it's so unsettling.
I mean, I wanted to watch it just for that reason. I wanted me and Josh to like invite some people over after the pandemic and like have a Cats viewing party. So it was actually horrific though.
The thing about it is that it's really unsettling, but it's not quite weird enough to be like a real fun, like, that you're watching it just for fun kind of a way. Because it was also a little bit And we only watched a little tiny bit of it.
Oh,
So
you
I
didn't
don't know.
watch the whole thing.
No. We came in.
Actually, I don't know if I can imagine Justin and Annie sitting on the couch, like going through Cats in its entirety.
Oh no.
Well, okay, well, if you ever have that horror that you see, maybe it'll be Starfish, but definitely send it my way.
I know there's like 5 or 6 that I've seen this year, but again, because I'm watching them a lot of times while I'm painting, it's like I see it and then it's out of my mind. And so I can't remember any of the titles. Because I know there was one I did want to recommend to you that I thought was really good, or at least interesting.
Well, if you remember it, send it to me. I would say the scariest last year is definitely Creep, but the scariest I've seen this year, Josh showed me, and I know it's a popular one, but Conjuring scared me. Like that actually did get to me.
Oh, which one? There's so many that like were during that time. Which one was The Conjuring again?
Oh, I know. There's like the whole Bloomhouse era of horror. It's the one where the two people that like hunt ghosts. They're a married couple, and they go. Yes.
That house. Oh, that movie. I really liked it just because of that house. That's like my dream. That house is like my dream house. Finding all like the secret
Really?
room, realizing that you have like a secret basement that you never knew about. Oh, that was so cool. I like. I thought that was a good movie.
Oh, I think it's excellent, but it definitely scared me. I mean, in a field of so much bad horror, like I watched Unfriended and I like what was the Escape Room? We watched that all together. I was like, oh gosh,
Oh no.
this is a challenge in itself. Okay, but anyways, I'll ask a couple more of the real questions, and then we'll end the interview. So thank you, Annie, for indulging me for this long, as is. But this one's from Anthony, and they ask, so the thing about things like the walnut oil is that it normally takes 3 to 4 days to dry. So do you just continue thinning the paint till it's really thin?
No, I think again, the the time that sets to dry, there's so many factors that are dependent on that. How dry of a climate you live in,
Mm-hmm.
the pigment that you're using with it. I use very, very, very little walnut, and I use walnut alkyd, not just the walnut oil. It's the walnut alkyd, so it does have a little bit of a drying agent in it. Um, but really, like when I did the workshop in Utah, I was finding that because the air is so dry there, that I would put a layer of my painting like in the morning, and then by that evening it would be dry.
Really?
How dry the air was. Um, so if you're really, really painting thick, that's not going to happen. But for how I work, I find that, like I said, typically it's just a day to dry.
Yeah, because usually when I talk to oil painters, it's usually like a week. So then you do spread it on pretty thin then.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of layers, but working pretty thinly. And I have a whole bunch of I guess you can kind of see I have videos up on my Instagram where you can kind of see how I build layers.
Yeah.
If you're
Because I mean, I've seen a lot of your paintings in person, but maybe is it that layer of varnish? Because I'm not as familiar with oil. Because your paintings don't feel like it has a bunch of like textures sticking up. It's very much like smooth. So is that because of the varnish, or is that because usually your paintings do have more of a smoothness to it?
because
Anyways,
I need the surface to be completely like before I even start painting, when I prep my surface, I'll usually do 3 layers of gesso and I'll sand between each layer. So it's completely like as smooth as glass when I start painting. Because when you start applying glazes, if there's any imperfections in your surface, it's going to show up. Um, so throughout the whole process, as I'm building these paintings, they do tend to stay pretty smooth the whole way through. And then
okay.
that last varnish really is just to unify everything.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Because then you don't have to do anything else after that layer then of varnish, right?
Right.
Okay. And okay. So the next question is from TJ. They're asking, how was your gallery experience, and would you recommend it for younger artists?
I think that a gallery show is something that you should do just for fun. I know a lot of people like to think like that's the thing and that's the end game. And once you're in a gallery, that you've made it. But you have to remember that galleries are taking 50% of everything that you're making, and uh, you should think of it as they're working for you, not the other way around. Um, and I think that people need to be really choosy with what galleries they want to show in, and make sure that they're showing with galleries that are putting the work in and putting
Mhm.
advertising in and doing things that you couldn't necessarily do as an artist. Because you have to think, if you're doing a show where your collective body of work is like $20,000, you are basically paying that gallery $10,000
Yeah.
if they. That's a lot of money. That should be, they really need to be doing a lot of advertising, and I think that's really important. Um, I think that a gallery show is something that makes people think that you're fancy, and so I think it's like a fun thing to do, but really, it should just be something that you do for fun, but not necessarily something that you do that you think is going to make your career.
Do you feel fancy?
So fancy.
This next question I actually don't understand because I assume it's an oil painter thing, but Lopi is asking, do you oil out often to get a consistent sheen?
Um, yes, but again, because I work with so many glazes, it's like the oiling out becomes the glaze, if that makes sense. And so if uh, I'm going to my painting and it's a fresh new morning, I'm ready to work on it, and it looks crazy because certain colors have sunk in a lot. Normally, the very first thing I do is a unifying glaze over the entire painting, and so I'll
Oh.
block in like what my lighting will be. So maybe my foliage is too bright, so I'll glaze some green umber over that part, or um, just kind of cover the entire painting. And by that point, there's really no need to oil out because I've already covered the entire painting in oil. Because I don't like, if I were to oil out and then do the glaze, I think it would just be too. I just feel like it would never dry and the paint would be too thin.
So for simple folks like myself, what does oil out mean?
So when you have like different pigments dry at different rates, and you have some colors like Payne's gray, for instance, that when it dries to like this very chalky color, and it's not really how the painting looks.
Oh.
And so before you start working on it, just to kind of know how everything looks, it's um, you basically you wipe some, or you can use a brush or you can use a lint-free rag, and you just wipe some type of oil over the entire surface of your painting to bring that life back, so you can kind of see how everything is supposed to look. You don't see all those patchy places where things have sunken in.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. In my mind, I don't know what I thought it was. I feel like, when a little kid has to come up with their own solutions as to the way something works in the world. I just did a weird one with that one. So, anyways, my last question then for you is, could you share some advice that you've kind of inherited recently about your own work that you would like to share with other artists?
Oh, um,
And this could be either the process or the way you think about doing art.
that's really, really tough. Um, I definitely would tell people not to feel like there is a certain process that you have to be married to um, through every single painting that you do. Um, I work completely. I mentioned a few of the different ways that I work earlier in this interview, but a lot of times people think there's this formula, that it's very like scientific formula, and once you figure that out, then you'll be able to do all these pieces. But the way that you approach a painting should just be like how you feel be most comfortable for you while working. Um, but I think that took me a long time to figure out, and I'm really, really glad that I know that now, because I can get so much more work done when I know, like, this piece. Not, I'm not going to start every single painting that I do with a black base, but a lot of them I do if it will serve the painting, and just knowing, just I guess knowing the best method that you should take a painting, and that it always doesn't have to be the same way.
So do you feel like you don't have a lot of limitations with like restrictions on, or I guess, do you feel like you go through phases in art where it's hard to say like this is the way to do it because that's the way I did it 5 years ago, and that's different than the way I did it 3 years ago, and that's different than the way I did it 1 year ago even.
Right. Or even I find seasonally my art changes. And so like during the winter when it's all very gray outside, I don't like to work starting with an underpainting. I want to work directly starting in color, just so I have something colorful to look at. where when everything
Oh,
starts growing and it's the spring and I have my windows and I'm seeing all the plants, I don't mind starting with, the black base or starting with an underpainting where everything's monochromatic at first because I already have so much color that I'm looking at.
that's a great way to look at it. I guess I've never thought about how much just like seasonal influence can have on my work. Well, anyways, okay. I won't take any more of your time. This has been very lovely. I'm sorry about the few hiccups and leaving you for the first minute.
It's fine.
But thank you guys, thank you Annie so much. And for all of you that are watching, I have links below to all of Annie's social media and her gallery. I believe I put in there. And just I really do believe you're one of the best oil painters, and you're one of the best people that are also happen to be an artist. So thank you so much for doing this interview. You are
Thank,
always like a delight.
thank you.
Absolutely. And then don't forget, send me a good horror movie sometime soon. All right. Well, thank you so much. And to everyone watching, take care and have a good night. Oh, and this is where I always have to pull up OBS awkwardly and close it because I always forget.